welcome back to the Iron Perspective. I'm your host, JD Denham. I'm excited to be here. I hope you're excited to be here with me. Man, it's been a crazy week for me. Crazy few weeks for me, but the last week, man, I've been going through a lot. I've been going through a lot. Man, I have had some serious back problems. Anybody that's new to this podcast or my channels in general, I've had 4 back surgeries, man. I've had a spinal fusion and 3 microdiscectomies. And the last 3 weeks, let me tell you, whew, it is painful. Anybody that has not felt what it is like to feel the pain of sciatic nerve being pinched in your butt all the way down to your leg, man, feel good, because it is hard to even put it into words. For those of you that know what I'm talking about, which is many, because I know a lot of people have been reaching out to me, and feeling my pain. It is brutal. It is brutal. But the show goes on as I sit here and my sciatic is pinched. Still got to do the show. Still got to show up. I choose to not give into that stuff, man. It is what it is. I'm doing what I can to fight it. I'm doing a lot more fasting because that brings down inflammation. I have completely changed my peptide regimen to just try to combat that and bring down inflammation. So I'm doing my part, man. So the last week, I went up to a surgeon up in LA, to not throw out numbers, but I have a family of 4. I have my wife and 2 boys, and I pay $1,800 for health insurance. Highway robbery. I can't even believe that's legal. That's what I have to pay as a man in California to have health insurance for my family. It's in pure insanity. But I do, because I have to. So I go up to the doctor. It takes me, 2 weeks to get in to see him. And, we're trying to plot the attack. Am I going to have another surgery, which I know the disc is slipped, or am I going to give it some time and hope that, it starts to settle down? I had this problem in November and I almost had the surgery. I had the surgery on the books, and then God just put his hand on it, man, and he healed it. And it just all of a sudden, almost overnight, pain just went away. And so luckily in November, I did not have the surgery. So every once in a while, it seems like every 6 months, this little sucker flares up. So it's been flaring up again, but it seems like every time it gets a little worse. Well, anyways, I've been dealing with that. I go down to Los Angeles on Monday and talk with this surgeon, and I can't even get an epidural. I have to. The insurance company wants me to do a month of physical therapy before they will approve the epidural. So I pay $1,800 for them to tell me that. So highway robbery, it drives me crazy. Anybody that knows me, I'm not a big fan of government. I'm not a big fan of pharmaceutical companies. And I'm not a big fan of insurance companies. It's all a scam, and it sucks. See the unwoke hat? That's why I started this company, man. It was my middle finger to all of that. So that's a good segue into what I'm going to talk about today. So a lot of what I talk about is contingent upon my DMs, what comes through my DMs. First and foremost, a lot of the content I've been putting out, obviously in the last couple of weeks, I'm talking about my back killing me, because of my back's killing me. And one, men, we hurt our backs, man. It's common. People that have sciatic pain is a very common thing. So people have been reaching out with support, giving me ideas on what has worked for them, this and that has been a blessing, man. The channels that I have with social media, which are, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, now this podcast, blah, blah, blah. It has been so rad and so amazing. The people that I've been able to cultivate, the group of individuals that seem to stick together, because my style and my goal in life is to light fires in men, to light the souls of men, to light back up and to be their best versions, man. I looked around a year and a half ago when it was the kind of genesis of me even starting the fitness channel, and I was so bummed on what I saw, man. Everybody's giving up on themselves. Everybody's overweight. Everybody is just giving up, settling for a job they hate, blah, blah, blah. And that was just the genesis. That was the fire that was lit in me. So, what I'm going to talk about today is, again, and some of this will be redundant for some who have been following the podcast from the beginning, but there's a lot of new listeners and a lot of this will be new for you. So, we're going to tap into the genesis of how I'm even on this podcast. We're going to tap into two men who lit a fire within my soul to change the entire direction of my life. I say it all the time, man. God knows what he's doing. God put two men in my life at the right time, just perfect right time to change the entire trajectory of my life. So let's dig into that, because my goal today is to light a fire in at least one of your souls. Hopefully, in many of your souls, men that are listening to this that hate their job, they're not happy with what they have been settling for, whether it be driving to a job you hate, sitting in a cubicle and just settling, waiting for that next paycheck to come, scraping pennies together till it comes. It's not how we're supposed to live, man. It's just not. And I'm trying to light a fire in your soul today. So let me dig into that. Let me tell you a little bit about that. So I have been a mortgage banker for a very long time. I got into the mortgage industry, gosh, maybe 25 years ago, 22 years ago. I don't know. I'm getting old. And it was good to me from day one, man. I was in my early 20s and I did well. I'm a very good salesman. I picked up in the mortgage industry very quickly and did well. So I've found some success quickly. But I always, coming out of high school, I never even thought about starting my own company. It wasn't in my head. I didn't have any desire to do it. My only thing that I ever thought about was I need to get a job that's going to pay my bills and try to be as successful as I can working for somebody else. I did not have the entrepreneur spirit. And it's changed quite a bit in regards to the last few years. I'm going to tell you the genesis, the spark that lit the change within me. But also now in the last year of this podcast, sitting down and interviewing some successful men who have always owned their own business, who basically came out of the womb a little bit different. They had that entrepreneurial spirit, and many of them are just kind of born that way. But a lot of us are not, and I was not. So I did have a few men in my life that changed the trajectory of that, and it changed my entrepreneurial spirit. So let's dig into that, because I hope today to change the trajectory of at least one of you listening. That is my goal. That is the goal of this podcast today. So as the mortgage industry, a couple years ago, 3 years ago or so, during COVID, it was killing it during COVID. We were crazy busy and life was good, but things slowed down, and I got a call from a very good friend of mine, guy that has a huge financial channel. He is huge in the Bitcoin industry, the Bitcoin world. You cannot say Bitcoin without Mark Moss's name being said. I say his name just because he is a very well-known individual in the financial world. I'm lucky to be friends with the guy. So when the mortgage industry slowed down, he has a huge YouTube channel, and apparently he needed a salesman to run his sales division. And so he calls me up out of the blue, ask me how's mortgages doing, blah, 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 and my answer, obviously, it's slow, man. And it just kind of is what it is. And he asked me if I want to run his sales division. Absolutely, I say. When a guy like that calls you to run his sales division, you jump at the bit. You absolutely take that job because of his stature. One, what you're going to learn, but two, just the doors that can be opened for it. So I'm no dummy. I took the job. And I've said this before, but it's very important to the part of this story. As I go down to Mark's studio, dude is successful to the degree where he has a professional studio, professional cameras, professional mics. The dude is killing it, for his YouTube channel. And I go down to his studio and I sit down and we talk about this job. And he says to me, he says, JD, what you're going to learn from me is going to be greater than what you're ever gonna make with me. And again, I've said that before, but it is so important to this part of the story because I remember catching that, but kind of wondering why he said that. I just thought that was kind of an odd statement. You know what I mean? Like, I was there to make money. Why would he say that? You know what I mean? My objective was not necessarily to learn from him. It was to make money, right? I'm a salesman. I'm pretty damn good at sales, and I'm going to try to sell as much as I can and make as much money as I can. That's the cloth at that point that I was cut from. So now Mark is the type of guy to put it into words and articulate it to a degree so you understand who this guy is and the men that he runs with, so to speak. Anybody that has read the book Think and Grow Rich, there is a chapter called Mastermind. And in that chapter, it talks about when one or more people get together and talk about a certain subject or whatnot, you share a brain. And the universe, God, whatever one chooses to call it, will give amazing ideas because you basically share a brain and you share the energy, and just amazing ideas come from it. So it's called a mastermind. Many of you will know what I'm talking about because you probably have read the book. So there's mastermind programs that out there that many men charge a lot of money to do. Mark is one of those men. So he had a mastermind group that he charged $60,000 a year, and they would get together every quarter and they would have like a 3-day event, and he would have, big speakers and just different types of guys talking about finance, Bitcoin, anything in regards to, financial stuff that's going to help you make more money, different type of investments, whatever. You're paying 60 grand, you're going to obviously want to get something out of it. So he has one of these events. It has been a year since he had signed this particular group up, and he needed to re-sign the ones that chose to stay into this group. So we fly out to Cabo, and he does his 3-day event. He has these rad speakers up there talking about different types of investments, obviously stocks, crypto, real estate, all that stuff, all the above, just different types of speakers that are top notch at what they do. And they're just talking about different ways to make money, blah, blah, blah. But the point of that, me telling you this part of the story is the fact that I just was around it. They're just a different breed of individuals. These people, men and women, owned multiple businesses, all of them. They were people who thought big and did big. You know what I mean? And it just was just the energy being in the room with these individuals was powerful. Just the energy that you felt, because you could feel that these were powerful people. The conversations that I had with these people were just amazing. They thought big. They did big. They took huge risks. Again, they had multiple businesses. I just was blown away. I'd never been around it. I'd never been around a group of individuals for 3 days like that. And I was so unbelievably moved by just the power of that. Men and women who thought big like that, and just, man, it just moved me. It lit a fire in my soul. And that's the point of this subject today. It lit a fire in my soul. It was the beginning of the change that has led me here. And I'll get back to that. So the end of this weekend, we go to a steakhouse. The weekend is done. I have numerous conversations with these people. Apparently, many of them are pleased with me. They like me, so they were speaking highly of me to Mark, which, triggered him to kind of come over to me and talk to me about certain things, blah, blah, blah. But he he says to me, he said, well, how did you like it? And I told him I loved it. We were out in Cabo. I had brought my family with me. At the time, I only had one son. Mason had not been born yet. But my wife was back at the hotel as I was eating dinner with this group, and Mark comes up to talk to me, and he says, how did you like it? What did you like? What did you not like? Blah blah blah. And I was just blown away. I said, I'd never experienced anything like it, man. The conversations I had, the fact that these people have so many different streams of revenue and they own so many businesses. I just was blown away by it. I just didn't even know people had that much time. How do you have time to have 4 businesses? That's crazy. I just was blown away by all of it. And he went into a story about how when he got out of high school, he never even considered working for anybody. And in that part still blew my mind because I had never thought like that. You never thought about working for somebody, because that's all I ever thought. I got out of high school and I was just going to get a job, try to get the best job that I could get, try to make the most money that I could get, and having no desire to try to own the company. None at all. None. Right? So he talks about how he never even considered working for somebody. He said, I knew right away I was going to start businesses, plural businesses, and I was going to find my own way. And I know I'm going to fall on my face, and I know I'm going to make mistakes, and I know at times I'm going to lose money, but I'm going to learn, and I'm going to open more businesses, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to open more businesses. And it lit a fire in me that, man, to this day is burning. To this day, that fire, that conversation lit is a forest fire within my soul today. I've talked about this before, but let me tell you, I went back to the hotel that night and I was a changed man. I was a different man. I was not the same individual, and my wife knew it. My wife knows me well. She knew something was up. She just said, what's up with you? And I told her about the conversation. I just said, man, I just had this conversation with Mark and I was just blown away by it, and I explained to her what I just talked to you about. And the part of that conversation that was so powerful was I started questioning, why the hell did I not do that? Because I didn't feel less than Mark in any way. I'm pretty good at sales, and I'm a pretty confident man. So I wasn't thinking I'm less than Mark. What I was starting to think of was I was less than me. I was settling for less than what my potential was. And it moved me. I was upset by it. Anybody that watches my channels knows that I give my damn all in everything that I do. Even when I was a drug addict, I gave my all to it. It almost killed me, but I put my all into it. When I got sober and I started to change, when I started to get back in the mortgage industry, I worked my ass off. I outworked everybody. It's who I am, man. Cut from that cloth. So I started to just think differently, man. I just started to think differently. Well, why can't I do that? Why can't I start businesses? So I did. I started a business maybe 2 weeks later. I started a business called Unwoke. It was a clothing company. It didn't really make much money. I made a couple bucks. But I took the next year learning how to post. I started an Instagram channel. I learned how to edit videos. I posted every day, like 5 times a day. And I started to cultivate the new me. That's what I did. I started to cultivate the new me. Like I said, anybody that has a clothing company knows there's not a lot of margin in clothing. I put up a lot of money into it at first, and I lost a bunch of money because I didn't make the right decisions. But like Mark said, right? Like Mark said, I made some bad decisions, man, but I learned from them. And in that time, I was continuing to work for him, and he would have seminars about how to build companies and different things. So as I would sign these people up through the sales division, right? People that would pay, thousands of dollars to sit with him in these classes and learn how to start businesses. I got to do it for free. I got to sit in, and I didn't have to sit in, but I chose to sit in and I took notes. You can ask him to this day. when he would ask questions and there would be nobody asking questions, I asked all the questions. I was trying to get better. I wanted to get better. I had this burning fire inside me and I wanted to get better. It's who I am, man. It's who I am. If you watch my channel, you know that's who I am. That's who I am, man. And it started to burn. So what happened was, Unwoke started to kind of lose its luster. It's a very polarizing subject, and it started to just yield some discontentment in regards to the political side. So I chose to put it down because of that. But I learned a lot from it. But I promised myself that I would never go back into an office. And I'm getting to my second point here. I promised myself I would never work for anybody again. I was going to start Unwoke, and then I was starting to think of my next businesses that I was working on. And the stuff with Mark was starting to dry up, and he was starting to go in different directions. I wasn't making much money, and I wasn't really trying to, because I was putting a lot of effort into Unwoke, blah blah blah. But I get a call. I got a call out of nowhere. I've ran mortgage companies, and I'm pretty good at that type of stuff. So I got a call from somebody to go back into an office to do some debt settlement stuff. I'm not a big fan of debt settlement, but it was enough money that was being thrown at me that it was enough to perk my ears. So I decided to take the interview. And I remember I go to this interview. I'm all dressed up again. I'm in slacks, nice shirt, tie, stuff I swore I'd never want to do again. I lived that life for a long time, man. I hate dressing up like that. So, anyways, I'm in the parking lot of this job interview, right? I'm sitting in my truck, and my conscience is screaming at me. You swore you'd never do this again. You swore you would never go back into an office again. My conscience was screaming at me. It was this battle within my head to not go to this interview, right? I'm sitting in my truck, dressed up, and there's this tug of war back and forth with my soul. You swore you'd never do it, but I'm being offered a lot of money. Does money win, or does my word win? And so what happened that day was, here's what I chose. Well, I'm here. Might as well at least go in there and see what it's about. So I did. Go into this office, sit down with the guy. I talked to the guy. It wasn't super, and I didn't really particularly want to do this or that. But at this particular time, I chose the money. I chose the route of money. I was being offered enough money. I was going to make enough money that the money went out. So I chose to go back into an office. And for the next maybe 3 months or so, I was making good money, man. I mean, I was probably making anywhere to for about 25 grand. I'm a mortgage guy, so that's pretty common. I know that's a lot to a lot of people, and then to me, it's pretty common. I'm lucky. I've just been in the mortgage industry a lot, so that's a pretty common, paycheck for me. But it's a lot of money to anybody, right? And so I took the job, but every single day I drove to that job for the next 3 months, and I had that same battle in my soul. Every single day I would drive to that job. My soul was screaming at me every day. You swore you'd never do this. You know what I mean? My character was antagonized every single day by my head. You swore you would never do this again. And that tug of war within my soul yielded just this discontentment. I'm not an anxious person in any means. It's just never been my thing. I'm not anxious, but I was anxious. I didn't feel right. I felt off. I was absolutely freaking miserable. My wife, was noticing, like, what's wrong with you? And it was because I had gone back on my word. I think at the time it was subconsciously. I don't think I caught up to it so deeply that was why I was so off, and why I hated the job so much. Was the job that bad? I mean, it's tolerable. I was making good money, man. Anything's tolerable for 25 grand, right? But every day. You swore you'd never do this. So I'd drive to work and I would be freaking miserable. But they had a gym in that it was this huge building, and they had a gym. So I would go to the gym on my lunch break. And this particular day, about three months into this job, I'm at the gym, and another buddy of mine who runs a huge YouTube channel. His name is Joe Brown. Many of you have heard of him. I've interviewed him on this podcast. He has Heresy Financial, which he talks also about financial stuff. But this particular day, he was telling this story about how he started the YouTube channel, Heresy Financial. And I'd never heard this part of his story. He only talked about finance. And in his story this day, he talked about how he was a stockbroker. He was making 300 grand, making really good money. But just like my story, he was driving to work every single day and he was absolutely miserable. The money wasn't enough to keep him happy in any type of contentment. It was he the way that he had articulated it to me is that a little of his soul died every day. And I remember hearing that and connecting to that so deeply because my soul was dying every single day that I drove to that damn office. I went back on my word, man. Anybody knows me that I am huge on that stuff. And I finally caught up to the gravity of why I was so unhappy. I said I'd never go back into an office, and I did. Yeah, I was making good money. I was miserable. So I listened to Joe's YouTube that day, and I decided right then and there in that gym that day that I was going to do exactly what he did. He quit. One day, he cut the damn lifeboats, and he never went back. So that day, I went home. I talked with my wife, and I literally told her, I said, I'm not going back tomorrow. And she was just like, what? You know, I know you've been unhappy, but like, what are you going to do? And I told her straight up what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something for me. I'm going to start a fitness channel. I'm going to start putting out fitness content, and I'm going to try to do what I've seen some guys online do, which is do some online coaching. And I'm going to try to do that. I had no direction. I had no idea how to start it, but I quit the job and I started the very next day. But let me tell you this. I forgot to tell you this. This is an important part. My bride said to me, well, if anybody can do it, you can do it. And I support you. It's an important part. That's who my wife is. That's my relationship that I have with my bride. She supported me in this decision. So the very next day, I didn't take a day off. I didn't take a week off because I was tired. I got to work. I get up at 4 a.m. and I come in here and I do my readings, I do my prayers, and then I get to work. And I started making content. I just started filming me working out. I started doing videos of me just talking about working out. I started doing videos about me talking about diets. I have a very strict diet. It's high fat, high protein. It was the genesis of high fat, high protein gets you ripped. Anybody that follows my Instagram knows exactly what I say. That's how I end my food, my food reels every day. Those were the genesis of that. So I started just to put out content, man. That was it. I had no direction. I didn't know what to do, but I just started working my ass off. And when I say I work my ass off, I work my ass off. I worked it like a job. I worked it like a job at 5 o'clock, give or take, right after I did my readings and did my prayers and all that stuff. I made content. My first approach was going to think I was going to go after YouTube and start doing like HIIT training and stuff like that. So I was filming HIIT training videos and me working out. You know, again, I was doing a lot of videos of me just talking, and I just started to learn, find my direction. You know, I started watching videos on algorithms and this and that. I had a lot of coaching guys reach out to me because I obviously was starting a fitness channel, wanted me to pay this and pay that, pay the $5,000 for them to teach me how to do this. I chose not to do any of that stuff, man. I did it myself. I learned. I did it myself and I did it my way. And I busted my ass. My first month, I put together a diet plan. I put together a workout program. Anybody knows me. My editor is sitting here on this channel right now, and he's gonna laugh as I say this. I suck at technology. I'm horrible at it. I put together a diet plan that for most probably take them a few hours. It took me 3 days to put this to get, to get it on canvas and do all this stuff. I'm horrible at it. It took me forever, but I spent 3 full days putting my diet plan together, and I put it together, and then I started selling it. And call it luck, call it hard work, definitely a lot of God. God put his hand on it, but people started buying it. And my first month, I made 30 grand. I don't throw that out there to be impressing anybody to do this or that. I made more money doing this than I did that I was doing the job that I hated. Now, I know right now there's going to be some people that think I'm full of shit. Whatever. I don't care. Made 30 grand my first month. And I continued just to work my butt off. I chose to follow my heart, and I chose to cut the lifeboats, and I chose to finally do what I said that I would do, keep my damn word, and never go back into an office. And I cut the lifeboats from that office that day. I never went back. And I started to make a fitness channel. And definitely God put his hand all over it. Somehow, some way, people just seemed to like the content that I was putting out. I honor God in everything that I do, so I definitely know that has a big part of it. But I took an Instagram channel that had no followers, and I grew it to 300,000 in less than a year. Now, apparently, that's a pretty big deal. To me, the only reason that it was a big deal is because I got a lot of people buying the product. If you have 300,000 followers, you got a bigger chance that more people will buy compared if you have 5,000 followers, right? So I busted my ass. I worked it like a job. And like I said, there's definitely some luck in it. Definitely God had his hand in it. But I chose to cut the lifeboats. Mark Moss lit the fire in my soul through that program and me being around those men and women who thought big and did big. It lit a fire in my soul that day that to this day burns. To this day burns. Ask my wife. I sometimes wake up at 2:30 in the morning, not because I don't want to, because I want to get up at 2:30. I'm so motivated to be better and to get better at what I'm doing that I will not lay in bed thinking. I will just get up and start working. It's who I am, man. And I started working that program. I was doing the diet plan. I was signing people up, and slowly but surely I could start charging more because I found more worth in myself, and the program got better. And then eventually, long story short, I started a peptide company in January, and now that's blown up. And the reason I say that is not to be boastful, man. It's because I started to be around the right people. I started to believe in myself. I chose to not settle anymore, man. Money's great. We all want to make money. Duh. Money's great. I've been blessed in that area. I've always done pretty well in that area. I've always done all right. But when you take big risks, and I'm going to tell you this straight up, when you honor God in what you do, and you honor him in all your decisions, your businesses, and how you talk to your wife and how you treat your kids, all the above, God puts his hand on it, man. So for those of you that don't believe that part, that's up to you to figure that part out. I do. I know that God had a huge part in all of this, but I did too. I worked my ass off. I'm still working 16-hour days, man, at times. Anybody knows I wake up early, I come in here and I do my content. I still edit my content for all my fitness channels, for my channels. I do all my content for my Instagram. I do all my content for the peptide company. I do the editing for that. I put the music into it. I have an editor for the podcast, but other than that, I do it all. And so from about 4:30 in the morning to about 8:30 to 9, I'm doing my content. And then I go to the gym, and then I go to the peptide company and I work my ass off all day till generally around 6 o'clock. And that's what I've done. I chose to follow my heart. I chose to take huge risks, and it has paid handsomely. A good buddy of mine and I started a peptide company in January, and the amount of peptides that we're selling now, 7 months later, would blow your mind. We work our asses off, though, man. We work our asses off, though. You know what I mean? And so here's why I'm telling you this, and here's where I'm going to end this. Right now, there's men where I'm at, where I was at, where Joe Brown was at. Right now, there are men and women who have settled. You've settled for a job that you hate. And I get it. If you have a family, the stress of that is heavy. I know what it's like to have the stress of a family and what it's going to take to provide for them. But we're not supposed to be comfortable. That's not where we grow, man. You're going to a job that you hate and you're scraping pennies to get by till your next paycheck. I just don't think that's how we're supposed to be, man. So I want to leave. Here's the light of the fire that I hope that lights at least in one person, hopefully in at least a few of you. Now, am I recommending you should just quit your job today and start a business? Not necessarily, but maybe. I did it. Joe Brown did it. It's paid off handsomely for both of us, but we both worked our asses off. If you think that you're just going to quit your job in a cubicle and half-ass it, of course you're not. But if you work it, and then anybody, so you all know, when you start your own business, I had to learn this too. You work a hell of a lot more hours than you do when you work for somebody. Because when you go into an office, you go home at like 5 o'clock and you're done. When you own your own business, you're never done. I'm answering DMs and emails and stuff at 10 o'clock at night when I'm going to bed. And when I wake up, it's sometimes at 3 in the morning, I'm answering emails and DMs and text messages and all that. It never stops, but it's mine. It's my business. It's not the same dollar. When you make a dollar from your own business, it's hard to even explain how much different that dollar feels. I can't explain it to you in a way until you feel it. Serious. A dollar that I made for a mortgage company that gave me leads tastes different than the first person that I signed up for my fitness program. I charged $300 at the time when I started it. That first one, oh my gosh, that first $300, I don't even, it's so hard. I can't even articulate it in a way you'll understand how sweet that $300 was. I came from an idea that I did. I made it. I created it. I put the fitness program together. I made the reel that attracted that person that chose me to be their fitness coach. Hard to put into words, man. So, do I think you should quit your job? I'm going to leave that to you. If you're a praying person, I would say pray on it. If you're married, I definitely say talk to your wife. And that part's going to be on you, man. But you can also do it a little bit more strategically, right? You can work your job 9 to 5, so to speak, and then you can come home and then work your other job, your business, until 10 o'clock. Of course, it's going to suck. You're working constantly. But trust me, when you start your own business, you're working those hours anyways, dude. You're working those hours anyways, dude. I mean, my peptide companies does well, man. I do well financially. I'm just going to be blunt with you. I still work 12 to 15-hour days, man. Have to. It is what it is. But you're willing to do it. So I hope that this touches somebody's soul. I hope that somebody chooses to cut the lifeboat today and choose to follow your heart, choose to follow your soul. We're not supposed to go to a cubicle and be miserable. We're not. I'm not saying that you can't make a living. I made a handsome living doing that for many years, man. But I was freaking miserable. So I leave you with that. I hope that somebody out there takes the leap of faith and starts betting on you. If you're somebody that loves to teach surfing or this or that, it doesn't matter what you do. I don't know. Everybody has something that they love. Choose that. So I hope my story today lights your soul, like Mark Moss did, like Joe Brown did, like God did. The timing of those things happening in my life were perfection. They were on the right days, all of them. But that's the God part, man. God's involved in this type of stuff, whether you believe in God or not. He's there. So if you're like me and you're a praying person, lift it up, man. God, what do you want me to do? So I hope today you bet on you. I hope today that lit a fire in the right person, our persons. That is the podcast today. Remember this, you're a warrior. Act like one. That's all I got.